Good morning.
Good
My name
morning.
is Carla Johnson, and I am a volunteer with the Savannah Municipal LGBTQ Oral History Archive. And today I'll be interviewing Mark Hill. And I'd like to start off by having Mark introduce himself and tell us a little bit about himself. How does he identify himself? And where do you come from, and how'd you end up in Savannah?
My name is Mark Hill. I have been in Savannah for about 34 years. I moved here with my partner at that point in time because of the historic preservation movement that was happening in this city at that time. I love old houses, had always lived in the ancients or been around the ancients. And just because of that, what was happening here is what drew me here. I'm from West Virginia. I'm 65 years old. I had parents that totally got me at an early age. They knew they knew what they had on their hands. We'll put it that way. There's a picture of me on my 4th birthday, and I've got the prerequisite Roy Rogers cowboy hat, vest, and little rifle in my lap. But behind me is a set of dishes. My mom and dad knew what they had. It was just, and it's just like as I grew up, they always had my back, and my dad would just say, "Oh, that's just Mark," that kind of thing. And so I didn't have all that BS that a lot of gay people had in my age group. I was blessed, so I knew that I had the support of my family. They were my biggest cheerleaders. And and that makes a hell of a difference in a child's upbringing if you have that kind of security in the household. And I consider myself one of those lucky guys, gay men in that age group. I grew up, like I said, in West Virginia. I'm from Weirton, West Virginia. I was born in Clarksburg, West Virginia. That's Harrison and Doddridge County. And if you're a true West Virginian, that's important because we are taught the history of the state from a very early age, because most of the families have been there since it was part of Virginia. And so we were taught where we came from and how we got there, that kind of thing. So that is also embedded in my brain as being one of those families. I absolutely love Savannah. I identify as a cisgendered gay man, and I had to find out what that meant. Somebody told me what I was. And it was like, okay, another label. Okay, I'm cool. Just tell me what it is. And my pronouns are he and him. I am married to an absolute wonderful guy that puts up with me. And trust me, I'm a piece of work.
We're going to start to hear that song from Oklahoma. I'm in love with a wonderful guy.
Exactly. It's just like, he absolutely where I'm all over the board. Mark, and his name is Mark also. He is flatlined. He's just the most even killed dude you ever want to meet. So it's just like, it's it's funny, but he's got yes dear down really good. Okay, yes dear. Yes dear. Yes dear.
That is wonderful. Well, Mark Hill, why do you think this is a good project? Why do you think projects like this are so important, and what made you decide to participate in the project?
This project that the city of Savannah is doing, is it's unique. All right. They know the importance of the gay culture and gay history to what Savannah is today. All right. And a lot of cities don't recognize that fact. Most urban areas go through a transition where the gay men move into a blighted area and bring it up. Okay. And then the nuclears or straight people come in and basically once it's safe and pretty. And that's what Savannah was like. Gay people were downtown way before as part of the the urban projects here, and making it livable again. Because Savannah, the one thing that saved Savannah was there was no money to tear it down and rebuild. Okay, that's why the architectural heritage is here today, and by grace it is here. But it was a lot of gay people that came into the urban area, that lived here, that worked here, that helped maintain these houses and help redo them and make it visibly safe for the nuclears to come in later. Okay, and so this type of project with the cities, we should show that, should reflect that, and it also tells us of our journey through the political maze that Savannah can be, and the through dealing with officials and police, and those stories need to be recorded, because there are people that 20, 30 years ago that were pounding on desks to make things right, because they had had enough of certain actions and things that were done by the police force towards gay men downtown. You know what I mean? It was just, and those people should be recognized, and their actions need to be recorded. And the city is recognizing that. This started with Luciana, the archivist, reaching out, wanting to know if there was any written record. And First City Network has is one, the oldest gay organization in the state of Georgia, and two, has an archive of all the newsletters that had been written since day one. And I knew that, and so I reached out to them. We were able to route those to her. She is in the process of scanning them and putting them out on the city archives, which connects to the Georgia archives, which connects. It goes on and on and on. And these are tablets and vignettes of the happenings of the day that let the community, our community, know what the hell was happening in our world. Okay. Everybody read that magazine, from that little newsletter from cover to cover, because it told us who was drop kicking us at that point in time, and it gave us information that we needed to survive. All right. And that's being recorded, and those are being published. And I tell you what, I am just so grateful to her staff, and her vision to make this happen.
That is wonderful. And the other two people that I've talked to really reflect that too. And you guys have inspired me, and I'm going to inquire about what have we done in Atlanta to preserve our oral history as well, because I know a lot of people who have been involved in the LGBTQ plus movement. And so, you've inspired me to continue as well. Well, let's continue on. So what was it like for you in the early days in Savannah in terms of being a gay man? And how did you end up being involved in the movement? I'll just, for the ease of definition, just call it the movement.
I think I was always involved as a young person, as much as you could be in the 60s and 70s. I knew what I was. And so, when things occurred within certain cities, I recognized it even as a teenager. The upstairs lounge tragedy in New Orleans. I was a young teenager at that point in time, and it petrified me. I read it and reread it, and it was a tiny little blurb in the back of the Pittsburgh newspaper that I looked at. It was just a little square, and I was just.
Well, for the sake of listeners, would you just briefly describe this incident, because I listened to an entire podcast on it. Yeah. It was devastating.
Horrific. It's absolutely horrific.
And a lot of people don't remember that story.
No. It was an upstairs lounge in New Orleans that attracted gay men, okay, as their watering hole. Privately owned. It was a Sunday afternoon, and remember, like I said, it was upstairs in a building. Somebody firebombed it from below. Okay, Molotov cocktails up the steps. It being an old building, rapidly caught fire. Most people inside the building were consumed by fire and smoke and killed. Um, because of who it attacked, the city basically ignored it. There were people that were never identified because at that point in time, gay men did not carry identification on them, left it in their cars and their automobiles because of the police raids that were happening at that point in time. So a lot of these bodies were never identified. Families didn't search for them. There was one guy that, and I can't remember his name, that was identified like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And he has been missing from his family all this time. They just thought he walked away. Now, who the hell does that? You know, that's the devastation that it was. And as a young kid, I saw this, you know, and there are pictures of people hanging out the windows that their bodies are charred. I mean, they're trying to get out. They're trying to get out of this building, and there's nowhere for them to go. It was horrific, you know, and so, you know, that is part of our history. And like I said, as a teenager, I picked up on that event. And there were other things like the Anita Bryant thing, the pie in the face. I stood up in my student union in college amongst a bunch of straight guys in my fraternity, and just applauded. The looks I got was just like, oh my God. But you know, it was what it was, you know.
Well,
just,
you know, and who knew that it would be an act of bravery to simply feel free to laugh at something that's ridiculous, as you know, as we do today in the face of some more
yeah, but she was dangerous. She was
a dangerous
and her voice
force,
carrying power. And we as a community, and people say today that boycotts don't work. Trust me, they do. Okay, you can boycott Chick-fil-A anytime you want to, kids, and you damn well better do it, because they are undermining us, and that's a political statement here, I know. But we controlled that Florida orange juice industry to the point where they got rid of her. Okay, because there wasn't a bar in on the East Coast that could serve orange juice and have it consumed. We dropped the consumption rate of orange juice at breakfast time to the point where we brought attention to it. So don't ever tell me that boycotts don't work. As a unified group, we control it. You follow the money. Okay, always know that.
It sounds like you recognize the value of political action pretty early on. You just got it. And that really helped you understand the power of action. So when you moved to Savannah, I assume you were quite young and you were single at the time.
No, I was partnered at that point in time. I was 29 when I moved to Savannah.
Ah, so you weren't that young when you moved.
No. I moved here without a job and without a house. My parents thought I was absolutely crazy, but it was a leap of faith. But no, I was 29, and actually, my partner and I at that point in time approached things a little bit differently. We were starting a business here in town, and we were a very out gay couple. Okay, we were a unified unit. We'll put it that way. We were together for close to 30 years. Okay, so you know, the longevity was there also. But you know, we were both young men, but we wanted to make we wanted to understand Savannah, so we started doing things that were positive for the community as a whole. We were involved, and you have to understand, Savannah was extremely accepting of us. You know, the old guard, because we were doing things positively, promoted us. I did things in Savannah that I could never have done. You know, we as a couple, we became members of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, okay, which is a group of people that live downtown. We were on that board for a number of years. We chaired the holiday tour of homes together for 5 years. We helped orchestrate what was called at that point in time Pick Up Savannah, which later became or was part of Keep Savannah Beautiful. And what we would do was we would have cleanup days downtown. okay, where we promoted it with business owners and the residents. We would have cleanups on the streets. One year we even brought in like 5 different elementary schools, second, third, fourth graders, had them bust in, fed them lunch. We had docents in Forsyth Park to tell them about the history of the monuments, about the plantings, that kind of thing. And so we were trying to educate people about literal awareness. So those things as a gay couple were extremely important because people saw a gay couple that were extremely positive and part of the community as a whole. Okay. And that's how we approached Savannah for many, many years. Okay. There were other people that were doing the elbow work within the community itself. And when called, my partner and I at the end would go and help. But we weren't the leaders at that point in time. And that the term leader is kind of like a thing that I kind of wince when people refer to me as that. It's just something that I kind of do, that now. But there were people like Mark Krieger, the Patties. It just Robert Bush. Those people were out there pounding and pounding and pounding, and so where they were doing this, we were doing this, okay, and it all worked. Does that make sense?
Well, you said that you were part of an organization as well, so it sounds like some of those elements were able to come together.
Oh yeah,
in an organization, in a very grassroots way.
Yeah.
To bring disparate groups together. I mean, this is small town.
Yeah, we had
Southern Georgia, and I'm sure there were a lot of different groups in there.
Yeah, one year for the tour of homes, just about every house on that holiday tour of homes was a gay couple. Okay, and gay men and Christmas, we put it out. It was just spectacular. And we all had a good time doing it. And we all, most of us are still friends today. Those that are.
That's incredible. So how are you, give me an example of how different groups of people really came together to make a difference, because I've heard a lot from my previous interviewees about some of this disparities, between the African-American gay community, gay men and lesbians and transgender. How were those disparate groups of people able to come together, would you say? Or did they?
They do. Okay. For many years, I didn't realize, I'll be honest with you, I did not realize there was such a huge gay Black population in Savannah. Okay. Because I did, and you didn't see them in the places that out and about where I went, but in my brain, see, being from West Virginia, we were always integrated, even in schools. Segregation was foreign to me, even as an adult and as a child. I mean, they did it they bust in West Virginia when I was a kid, but it made no sense because my school was close to my house, and the same people that I went to school with this building were the same people I went to the school at that building. They just did it to meet a federal guideline, and like, I grew up in I call it an international community. There were Italian neighborhoods, there were Polish neighborhoods, there were Appalachian American neighborhoods, there were Black neighborhoods, there were Greek neighborhoods, but we all went to school together. Okay, so there was probably 10 to 15% of the teachers that I had in high school were Black. You know what I mean? So that segregation thing I didn't get because it wasn't part of how I grew up. But when I came to Savannah, it was oh oh, this is still happening, or this is happening, and that was my first experience with it. So so I had a hard time myself understanding the concept.
And from what I've heard from other interviewees, there were definitely segregation in terms of people of color living in certain communities and white people living in certain communities. And also the gay bars were somewhat segregated.
and that needs to be recognized and remembered, because we
Mhm.
were dying. They had to step in politically. They also took care of us. So during that point in time, they became a force within their own communities, and everything was intermingled.
Mhm.
And friendships were built over that. And
So the
and
HIV crisis helped to bring the communities together, would you say?
Oh yeah, exactly. Especially well in that older what you see now in that aging group of people. Um, those friendships are still very extremely solid, and also within the Black community at that point in time, because HIV, like every other things, like even you see it in COVID today, hits the Black and the Latino communities extremely hard because of the disparity financially and that kind of thing. And so you saw it during that first wave of HIV and AIDS. And so
Mhm.
the communities had to rally together. Of course, at that point in time, we were also learning because nobody knew anything. Okay.
Mhm.
We had to learn to survive, and we had to learn to take care of each other, because, again, the government wasn't doing a damn thing for us. They were just think they were hoping it was going to wipe us all out. That was the attitude. You call it what it is. And
Mhm.
because it was hitting people that they really didn't care about, or didn't care that even existed. But yeah, and today, you see still that little that disparity, but the city of Savannah today has a group of people called Proud Savannah, which this mayor has put together, and it's a very broad group of people, age, color, gender identity, that that have come together as a community, voices, to let the city know of these disparities that we see. And John
Mhm.
Welcher, our sheriff, I'm on a subcommittee with him. It's a citizens advisory board where and John Welcher's he's amazing. Our sheriff is another person that is just amazing, especially with the gay community. He doesn't care. Okay, and hi John. He and I'm on that subcommittee. So before COVID, we were meeting once a month, once every 2 months, just updating as a voice within our communities, and keeping his ear to the ground so he knows what was happening, so he could operate his organization efficiently. So does
One
that
of
answer?
my one of my interviewees told me that initially there was only one, basically an ombudsman who was a member of the force, who was a lesbian, and I'd love to find her and interview her. Do you remember her name?
I will. I can't write it,
Um,
but I will.
yeah, because I think she would be a wonderful interview, but she was
Yeah.
such a fierce advocate when, when gay people were being beat up a lot, and or crimes against gay people were being completely overlooked. The regular so-called bashings.
Her appointment came about based upon that what was happening, or what are happening, such as that. There were gay bashings that were happening, yeah, in parking lots and that kind of thing. And usually
Do
it's
you
one
remember the
guy.
incident with the Marines that killed a gay man?
I do. That happened just as I was coming here, or right before I came here, but I had already heard about it, at that point in time, and there were other incidents very similar to that happened over the course of the years,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it started out and it's a very aggressive type situations where the gay man didn't have a Chinaman's chance in hell, basically, to to survive, or to get away. When you have a group of
Mm-hmm.
thugs that have their mindset on doing something, they're going to do it.
Right,
And that's just the way it works. And that,
right.
unfortunately, that boy lost his life, and
Mm-hmm.
then there have been other incidences where there that gay people have lost their lives, just doing something kind for people, There was a gang in Savannah, the Givens gang back in the 80s, and it was run by a 15-year-old thug, and he had 8 or 9 policemen under his thumb that were part of the gang. And to get into his gang, you had to kill a cracker. Okay, neighborhoods were freaking out because people were getting shot and just walking their dogs or shot at
Uh-huh.
walking dogs. And there was a young man that was the manager of the Pink House, and he was at another bar, Faces, which was down on Lincoln Street. It was 4th of July weekend, and there was a woman, and Faces at that point in time had one restaurant. Okay, it was unisex, and the woman was a tourist, and she was a little bit just wary about sharing the restroom with the boys. Okay, so this guy, his name was John, and he offered to walk her up to the Pink House because the tavern was open, so she could use the ladies' room. All right. He was walking up through the square that's in front of the Pink House, and 3 young teenagers, attempted to rob them. And this was daylight. This is the 4th of July weekend. They shot and killed John. Okay, and he was doing a good deed for somebody and was walking from place to place. That's how ruthless this gang was. So and that's not, it's a gay thing, but it's not something they probably didn't know that he was gay, but it was somebody being at the wrong place at the wrong time that also alerted our community to what was happening within the administration, and we rallied in that same square and actually supported the woman that was running for mayor against the mayor at that point in time.
Do you think that your actions were instrumental in getting some control over this gang?
Um, I think there was a lot of political awareness at that point in time. People were petrified. Group of neighbors downtown had hired. I was with a group of people that hired a private security firm to monitor the neighborhood. All of our neighbors pitched in because the police couldn't control it. I mean, it was crazy, and plus, with 8 or 9 cops working with them, they found out later that are all in federal prison. It's like,
Wow.
there was nobody knew that it was unstoppable until it happened. It was craziness for about God. And there were more horror stories about this kid doing his thing throughout the historic district in Ardsley Park. Yeah, it was nasty.
So that's another great example of how, the community rallied together to make things happen. It sounds like there's a lot of different organizations now in the city. They're, sort of divided up by faith, faith-based versus government versus, still the non-governmental organizations.
Oh yeah.
Would you say that there's a lot of positive interaction between them, or do they function very independently?
I don't want to use the term silos because, a couple years back, maybe that was the case, but with the interaction with our mayor and how he approaches it and bringing the leaders of those organizations together, the conversations are there, the connections are there, and they needed to be. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was just that everybody seems to work at the same issue in different ways. Like there's Tybee Equality Fest, which is out on Tybee. There's Savannah Pride, which is within Savannah. There's First City Network. There's other organizations out that are helping. But the other thing that is a catalyst that brings some of them together is that we have an LGBTQ Center now. It's a physical place where people can use and organizations can be in the same building to meet on their own agenda at the same time. And that makes a hell of a lot of difference because we have a place to call our own. And between what the mayor is doing and the LGBTQ Center is doing, and then those wonderful people at Tybee Equality, and then all the other small communities here, that are just that you've got the young people today don't take prisoners. Okay, they are, and it's wonderful to see. They they're out and about. The one thing that I caution that I always caution them, I said, you have to understand your history, or you can't really move forward. You have to respect the history, and you also have to recognize the work that got you to the point that you are today. When I was the executive director for Savannah Pride, I worked with a lot of absolutely talented younger people, uh, amazing young adults, and I absolutely love working with them. But when marriage equality happened, they were just like, "Yay, we got it, we're going to be good." I stopped them. I told them this. I said, "You have to watch that political pendulum." I said, "It might be swinging in your direction one day, but it can swing back again." And with the Trump administration, we saw that. Okay, that pendulum was coming right for our heads again, and a couple of them got a hold of me and they said, "Okay, Papa Mark, you were right. You nailed it. You nailed it." You know what I mean? So they listened, they understood, but it takes people in our age group to point out those things to these high energy young folks, to let them understand that they have to stay woke. They have to understand that what they have is precious and it's very fragile, and you have to guard it. It's not like it's a given. Trust me, it's not.
Well, we have that great advantage of now having elders, because at the beginning of the movement, it was a young people's movement, young and maybe middle-aged people's movement,
It was, but
early
also,
middle age.
yeah, and I will agree with that statement. But we also have to recognize that we lost probably almost a half to three quarters of those people that would be elder today to HIV and AIDS. Okay,
That's
we
true.
lost it. We lost a
So
generation.
we're thin at the top with elders who are experienced in the movement,
Yeah, exactly.
especially among men and people of color. And I'm thinking African
Well,
American men and women who lost their lives to the AIDS
yeah,
crisis.
and in Savannah that was recognized here. Okay, with the Black community and the lesbian community and the straight female population, because it was recognized quite a bit because it was hitting that population readily, along with the gay men, be they black or be they white. But the women were also being hit, and Phoenix Project and Madeline Project were help organizations through Union Mission that help give people the care that they needed and connected the dots. And there were people that saw the snowball from hell coming, and that were forefront fighters from the very beginning.
So I've heard some people lament the fact that the fulcrum of some of the movement work, which were some of the lesbian and gay bars, there aren't so many of them anymore. They're not so much the hub of social activity and also activist activity that they were. Would you say that's true in Savannah?
Oh yeah, definitely. Uh, you know, uh, One, Savannah is a blue dot within a red state. Basically, you go 5 miles outside of town and you're in Trump land again, which is shocks the hell out of me. But
Well, that's true about Atlanta as well.
yeah,
Or
exactly.
Decatur. I live in Decatur, so we
Yeah.
consider ourselves a blue dot as well.
Well, people have to understand, and I make this statement quite readily, that the political power in Georgia doesn't come from the cities. It's in the rural areas. Look at the line of governors that we have. They're all farmers. Okay. And so the political power comes from those small farming communities. And that's where the money is, and that's where that political stronghold comes from. I mean, and that's a hard battle to fight. So, but that's the truth of the whole thing. It doesn't come from Atlanta. It doesn't come from Savannah. Or any of the other larger dots on the map. That's where that political stronghold is. but as far as the gay bars being the center of um, of the political activism and social activism, um, it doesn't happen that way anymore. Electronics and social media has taken over that interaction, especially with gay men, and that's obvious. You know, we all know about the apps, and so there's not that happening. Um, the that we have one gay bar in Savannah that is still very politically and socially active, Club One, and they do their best to maintain that status. Um, Socially, it's like all gay bars. Uh, there are there are a lot of wedding parties that end up there and frequent there that and the older folks, we don't tend to go anymore. We just don't. The one thing I joke about, if somebody in this town would start an old-fashioned tea dance like we had in the 70s and do it Sunday afternoon before the old folks are ready to go to bed, they'd make a fortune because there's a few of us that still like to just go down to the good stuff, and we'd have a blast. But nobody's taken me up on it right just yet. But 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 you don't see that because they it's just that political activism happens when it's necessary within. And also Savannah, the bars here are extremely opening and welcoming. There are some that aren't, that are hangouts for the local bubbas, but most of the bars downtown see the frequency and interaction between gay people and the straight people, that are here. Now the straight people and the gay people that live here kind of get it. You might run into some conflicts with tourists that are from someplace else that don't understand that there's a large gay population here. You know what I mean? But the bar owners and people that own them are very open and embracing to the gay community. You know what I mean? So a lot of the gay men that bar hop and do that kind of thing, they openly go to multiple places. And the FCN has what they call, and I can't remember what they're calling it, but they frequent a bar downtown on a Tuesday afternoon at happy hour, and the gay people just converge on it. It's just like, yeah, and we used to do it years ago, and they're bringing it back, or they have brought it back, and it's fun. You know what I mean? It's an afternoon after work, and everybody goes and has a couple drinks, and you get to see people that you haven't seen for a while, and get to interact. And it's it's just been brought back after COVID. Now COVID's back with like a bat out of hell in Chatham County, and so how long these things are going to last again for right now is yet to be determined.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we're all experiencing that all over the world, actually.
Yeah.
So I guess, there's a great advantage in being assimilated, as they say, for immigrants who come into this country, that you don't have to worry about being around your own kind of people, that it gives you a tremendous amount of freedom to know that you can go anywhere and be anyone. Do you think that holds the true for the faith community as well, for the churches in Savannah?
Many, yes. Many have social active committees within them, and are extremely accepting. The synagogue here, the McVie Israel, the Unitarian Universalist Church, has always had a social active organization within. Um, there's one or two Methodist churches, and then you've got the Episcopal churches that are extremely gay friendly here. The Catholic Church is not so much. The First Baptist Church, the First Baptist Church on Bull Street, is extremely gay friendly. Okay, but there are other churches that aren't so gay friendly. Independent Presbyterian Church is they're just, and I'm going to say it, they're nasty. All right, they're just nasty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're extremely anti-gay, and which is crazy because our ex-mayor is a member there, and
Mm.
you know, there's a story in itself. Um, but it's just so there are those that would like to undermine us, but there are those that are extremely supportive of the gay
Mm-hmm. You know, you were just, I wanted to get back to one thing that you were talking about, and that's the young people. You know, I think one of the reasons why this project was so dear to a few key people's hearts was that they don't want the young people to forget. They want people to remember what it was like, how many very dedicated and inspired people made a difference, and how we should never forget, um, and know that we have to keep fighting. And I think you touched on that with some of the younger people that you advise. Is there, I really would like to continue in that direction. What are some of the other things that you think are very important to impart to the younger folks in the movement these days? And what do you think are some of the most important issues facing gay people today? And I'm talking about women, people of color,
community.
transgendered, people who are gender fluid, who have
Yeah,
a number of different pronouns,
sure.
and that and the like.
Well, one, um, as we progress, and this is flipping the coin a little bit on this point. Um, it's their job to educate the old. Okay, with the new terminologies and how they perceive, it's like the word queer. Okay, in my generation, it made me want to ball my fist up and punch somebody. Okay, it was on.
Mm-hmm.
All right, bottom
Mm-hmm.
line, they have taken it, accepted it, and possessed it. Okay, they have taken possession of it, and it's now a term that people like me have had to come to terms with. Okay, it's okay. All right, I'm a queer guy. I'm good. You know what I mean? I'm not being called a queer guy, which I still the fist comes up. Okay, but I'm queer, and it's mine. I own it now. All right, which is something that they have done. Um, on the other hand, they need to be more readily accepting of our diversity. All right, they can't build silos that they tend to want to do within a community. All right, transgender people, black gay men, white gay men, sexually orientated fluid people, we have to accept our diversity. We have to possess that and protect it, because there's an element out there that would rather us be at each other's throats than unify. If we're unified, they can't stop us. Okay, our own force is in the acceptance of our culture, our our being as a whole, not just my little part of the world. Okay, and that's something that they have to continue to work. They see that wall building up, they need to rip it down real quick. All right,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I hope to see. It's important because you know being a gay man, my like I said at the very beginning, my family was gold. They were wonderful, but many people didn't have the blessings that I had. Okay, being a gay man is extremely tough within its own self. Between your family, your job, your church, everything else is just like coming at you because, you know. But being a transgender in this culture, can you imagine being a transgender person in America today? And trying
It's
to.
it's a tremendous act of courage
Oh,
to come out as a transgendered person.
yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the last bastions I think of.
Well, It is, and God bless those parents that recognize the kids at an early age. Okay,
Yeah,
that
I have two or three friends that the other night, I'll tell you a funny story. This My friend Michelle, who has to head back to Angola with her husband because they're working for the State Department, and she's dragging her 13-year-old back with her. And I said, well, how is she doing? And she goes, well, apart from the fact that she is now a bisexual witch. I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, she's decided she's a Wiccan, and she's decided that she is bisexual and wants to be a they. And and I said, well, how do you feel about that? She said, I don't care, I just don't want her to be angry at me about it. It was really kind of cute. but
that's
but I
a
think, yeah,
teenage
people
daughter
who are,
right there.
well, and that's such a terrible age for mothers and daughters anyway. I remember it well. But so I think that, the sensitivity has to go both ways, like you said, that we need to teach each other how to treat each other constantly. And then with the movement, as you said, I remember a chant from our demonstrations, which were, people united can never be defeated. And
Exactly.
that had to do with our anti-war activities,
Sure.
our, my women's march on Washington in the 80s for reproductive freedom, marching with the very next year was the gay rights march on Washington back in the 80s. So I think that if we all can realize that and teach each other, we can't be defeated.
No, exactly. And those dinosaurs that want to, and what they do is they pick the weakest link within our
Mhm.
culture. Transgender children are their target right now, which
Right,
I find extremely offensive.
right.
Okay,
It's
it's a
incredibly abusive.
it's
it,
abusive.
it's
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 nasty to
very
the
low.
core. And that's what
So that's one of our biggest challenges. I think we were touching on that before, is the issue of maintaining the dignity and rights of transgendered people is probably at the top of the agenda. And what are some of the other things you think are very important, especially things that you are personally involved in?
well, I think also, you have to educate um, your workforce. Okay, you have to educate the outside community of who you are, because there's still walls that are there within everybody's community that they don't understand us, and that kind of thing. When you move into a neighborhood, you may be the only gay couple, or you seek out other gay couples, and you volunteer. Okay, you don't have to volunteer for a gay situation, or something within your own community. Do other volunteer work. Okay, let them see you as part of the community as a whole. All right, let them understand that you are a person that is part of the community and extremely productive. All right, that takes note with them. Okay, they see that. Let them put you into that light that they put everybody else in, and not this other person. And also, as in a social realm, if you're married, don't accept a lot the certain terminology. Like, I have people saying, refer to Mark as my partner. I correct them, no, he's my husband. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. You have to educate. You have to not be shy about it. It don't have to be
Mm-hmm.
me, but you make a point. And some people, times people go like this, and I'm like, no, no, you don't get it. You don't get it. If we were living together, but we're now married. See the ring? I'm
We're not
you.
living in sin anymore.
Exactly. Trust me, I'm you. Yeah. But it's a metamorphosis. It's always going to be, and we have to
Right.
be socially and also take care of each other. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we have to rally around each other, especially in small communities. I may not know you or know your name, but I might know of you. okay? But you're still part of us as a whole. And you know, if something happens in your world or your household that you need help, we need to rally. We need to support each other no matter what. You know, if you're being abused at work, we need to take note. You know, if something happens that wouldn't happen to a straight person in a law enforcement type of situation, we need to pay attention. And we also need to beat the drums when necessary. Stay woke, especially in Georgia. Stay woke in what's happening at the Capitol. They're sneaky little rascals. Okay, they will tag something to a farm bill that will affect transgender information because they don't think anybody knows. I mean, they are nasty up there, and you
Mhm.
have to stay alert and stay woke the entire time.
Mhm. Yeah, agreed. Well, Mark, um, this ends the official part of our interview, and I'm going to go offline for a second. I thank you so much for participating in this interview. This was great information. Um, and we hope that if there's anything else that you'd like to share with us, we could schedule another interview.
Sure.
Um, I like to keep them kind of short though, because people get tired. So
Oh
thank
yeah,
you again for participating in this interview.
it was a pleasure.